and it was a three-line quote. He said, "Talent is God-given, be thankful. Praise is man-given, be humble. Conceit is self-given, be careful."
Hello Bible lovers, welcome to another episode of Unscrolled, Museum of the Bible's podcast about and around the Bible. I'm the host Matthias Walther, joined by my co-host, my boss, CEO of the Museum of the Bible, Dr. Campo, and a very special guest sitting right in the middle of us. If the book of Acts had continued to be writing in chapter 49 or 50, he probably would have been one of the folks featured in there. So for those of you who don't know, Tony Dungy, he's a Super Bowl winner as a player with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which he's going to be at tomorrow, and with the Indianapolis Colts as a head coach. He's been drowned in awards, anything from the Maxwell NFL Coach of the Year, the George Halas Awards, Lamar Hunt Award. He's part of the NFL 2000s All-Decade team, and he's in the Ring of Honor of the Indianapolis Colts and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And most people know him right now, and I alluded to that a little bit, as an NBC host and analysis for NBC Sunday Night Football.
Well, I think even as you introduce Mr. Dungy, it's clear to all of us that his life is really packed. We were just talking before we came on air about your family life, and that's one of the things I hadn't been aware of. I mean, I knew you'd been married, you and Lauren,
42 years.
42 years, all right, so you're still newlywed. I bet you by a few years there. But 3 biological kids and 7 adopted kids, in addition to everything else you do, Tony, and help our listeners with how do you find this work-life balance? Because I know that in the fall you don't have it because you're on the road all the time, but talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's really important to have that. And even when I was coaching, coaches notoriously spend a lot of time at the office, and you've got 53 players and a staff that you're responsible for. But I always thought balance was important. And so taking my kids to work, being around, getting off early, making sure my coaches had time with their families, that was important to me. And now that we've got these young kids and I'm getting a little older, still trying to find time to go to their functions, be at their games, and be a dad for them. That's huge.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I heard a quote from your protege and friend Lovie Smith, who said equally important to you to what you do is how you do it. Why is that?
I think that's really important, and I got that from my parents. I was really blessed to have great parents. Both of them were teachers, but my dad always talked about making situations better. How do you come into a place, whatever that is, and try to make the situation better? That's what he passed on to us. And then my mother, her saying was always, how are you going to do this? Who are you going to do it for? And not what you do. That's not the most important thing. You can take any line of work and make it fantastic if you're doing it the right way and doing it for the right person. And her quote, which I never did understand as I was growing up, but it was Matthew 16:26. What would it profit a man if you gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? So she would always say that you can't forfeit your soul. You have to do things in the right way. And as I came up through the National Football League, I saw that happen some. I saw men with all the accolades that you could ask for, all the fame, all the notoriety, all the money, but their life wasn't in the right place. And so for me, that became very, very important.
Oh, wonderful. I know we talked offline also about your mother, who I have great admiration for because she taught Shakespeare to high schoolers, which today is truly difficult, but hearing that it was honestly one of those things where kids saw that as an opportunity with your mom because they loved her teaching so much. But talk to us, because we've read your books on leadership, Tony, and a lot of them aren't overtly biblical, but here we are at the Museum of the Bible. It feels like the principles, though, in your books and leadership are undergirded by biblical principles. Was that your mom also?
Absolutely. All the principles are scriptural. And so when I went into it, understanding that my job as a leader, as a head coach, was to help my staff, help my players, that's straight from the Bible. You know, Jesus said, if you want to be the greatest in my kingdom, you put yourself at the bottom and you uplift everybody else. And so that's what I tried to do. I fortunately had some great examples of that in coaches that I played for, but that became my MO. And I also thought that building a team or building any type of organization, character is so important. So as we were scouting players and trying to develop lists of who we wanted on our team, we took all the physical attributes, and yeah, we looked for height and weight and speed and strength and all of those attributes, but we also had a character grade, and we wanted those A+ character guys on our team, and guys with C or D in that character, no matter how talented they were, we didn't want them. And that's how we built the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's how we built the Indianapolis Colts when I was there, and I think that's the way to do it.
That's great.
Podcasts with Carlos always end at Shakespeare at some point. So
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Find a way. We find a way.
Yeah, I quoted my mom a lot, and I quoted my dad. I didn't quote Shakespeare all that much, but
that's probably something.
You still have time.
That's probably something we all three have in common. That the appreciation for our moms, and I think that's where it goes back to. But maybe a good reference to Shakespeare. There's a lot of stories that exceed the drama of Shakespeare in the Bible by leaps and bounds. And people go to incredible highs and excruciating pain, and you had your share of ups and downs in your life. And what I read about you, you always reference the Bible, you always reference your faith that carries you through. So, what is it that carries you those highs and valleys?
I think I was just raised that way, to depend on the Lord in every situation. And I remember my high school coach giving me a little card when I was 14 years old and just starting out playing football in high school. And it was a 3-line quote. He said, "Talent is God-given, be thankful. Praise is man-given, be humble. Conceit is self-given, be careful." And he tried to give that to me as a 14-year-old because he thought I had some skills, but he wanted me to understand that it wasn't me. That the talent I had was from the Lord, and that was important to understand, and that you had teammates, you have coaches, you have parents, you have people that are going to support you and help you get to where you want to go. But don't feel that it's all you and you've done this great thing. Be humble about it, and then you're going to get those blessings. And so I grew up that way, and I understood that when I did get these successes and I got a college scholarship and then I got to the National Football League and then I became a head coach, it wasn't all because I worked harder than anybody else or I was smarter than anybody else. It was coming from the Lord. And if you have that in perspective, then when things are disappointing, you can say, well, God's still going to take care of me, even though we lost this game, even though I had this difficulty, even though I got this illness. God's still in charge. And to me, that was great to know that and understand that always.
Mm-hmm.
You referenced your high school coach. I know you've had great mentors in your life. You talk about mentorship a lot, Tony. What about mentorship? You're stretched, as you talked about. How do you be intentional about being a mentor, even beyond being a dad, but also say, because sometimes you just have to say no. I've got too much going on. I can't formally mentor you. Talk to us about mentorship a little bit.
It is so important. I think back to growing up in my little small town, Jackson, Michigan, and the older guys who looked out for me and took me out to practice and helped me stay on the straight and narrow. And they didn't have to do that. And then you mentioned some of the coaches I had that were just tremendous figures in my life. My first head coach in the NFL, Chuck Noll. I remember coming to Pittsburgh. They were in the middle of a Super Bowl run, and I looked up to these guys, and Coach Noll said, "Hey, welcome to the team, but don't make football your whole life. You've got to find significance off the field. That's just as important." And the older players taking me under their wing, taking me to Bible study, taking me to the chapel services and pouring into me and helping me learn not only my football assignments, but helping me grow as a man. So you have this success and you say, and so many people went into this. Now, what do I do? Do I just say, oh, well, they helped me and I'm good, so I can't help anybody else? No, you want to reach out and you want to do the same thing. And I do try to do that. As you say, you have to understand you're limited and you've got kids and you've got a job and you've got responsibility. But if somebody reaches out to me and wants a little advice or wants to talk to me, I just feel like I need to do that. I need to help as much as I can.
Wonderful. Thank you.
What comes to my mind is a mentor of mine once described himself to me. He said, "I have a bias towards action." And you obviously are a man of action. Now, the one example that really comes to mind for me is the situation about Michael Vick, right? So in 2007, I think it was, he was untouchable. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with it. You ruin your career if you affiliate yourself with him. And then you, I don't know if it was through phone or whatever else, you reached out while he was in prison and mentored him and were instrumental in reinstating him into the football community. Why did you do that?
I believe in second chances. I believe in helping people. And that particular one with Michael Vick was truly a God thing. My wife is from a little small town in Pennsylvania, and Michael Vick's attorney happened to go to the same high school as she did. So Michael is in prison, Leavenworth prison, and getting ready to be released. His attorney reached out to my wife and said, I'd love for your husband to talk to him. He just needs some guidance. He wants to get going, get his life going. And when I got that message, I said, sure, I'll do that. So I flew out to Kansas, went to Leavenworth prison. We're in a little room no bigger than this, and he's in an orange jumpsuit. And I'm thinking, 3 years ago, this was one of the most famous men in America. He's on the cover of it. As talented as you could be. He's on the cover of the Madden games, and he's the highest paid player in football. And now we're sitting in this prison cell, and he's in an orange jumpsuit. But I talked to him, and I asked him what was going on in his life, and you could tell in his eyes and in his heart. He said, I've made some mistakes, and I want to show people I'm not a bad person. I want to show kids that they may have looked up to me, and they may be disappointed now, but I want to be that role model for them. And I remember talking to Coach Andy Reid. He was at Philadelphia then, and telling him, I really believe this young man has changed, and I don't know where he is athletically anymore, but I think as a person, you're not going to be disappointed. And the Eagles signed him and got a lot of animosity for that.
They did.
But I think that's what we should be all about as a society. And I'm so proud of Mike now in these years, 10 years that have gone by, 12 years. He's done everything that he promised in terms of trying to help young people, and he is a different person. And I think that's what the Lord is all about.
Yeah. You talk about animosity and pushback, and you're not afraid to take risk. This was not without risk.
Yeah. And I had people call my charity. We have a charity called All Pro Dad in Tampa, and people call in and say, "Oh, you support that dog killer. I'm never going to contribute to you again. I'm done with you." And I think, is that what we're really all about? If someone says, "Hey, I made a mistake and I'm sorry and I want to make up for it," that we should say, "No, we don't want anything to do with you." But I did get it. I did receive it. But I think that's part of life.
And occasionally you really speak up about topics that are touchy or controversial. Do you think about that before? Is that a strategic decision, or you just follow your heart when you do that?
I really try to follow my heart. We're here in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, I came to the March for Life, and I thought it was the right thing to do. As you mentioned, we have all these adopted children. I look at young kids as not a choice or anything like that. I look at them as lives. So to come and speak at that march was just uplifting for me, and I got a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, vitriol, because how could you support that, and how you hate women and all this kind of stuff. And so no, that's not it at all. But you can't always be popular. It's not always about what people think is the right thing. I always go back to, what does God say about it? What does the Bible say? And in that case, the Bible talks about speaking up for the least of these and helping those who can't have their own voice, and I just thought it was something I needed to do.
Yeah.
You stood on your principles, which is one of the reasons why tonight you'll be a Pillar Award recipient. It's true. I mean, Johnny Erickson, Tada, and Dr. David Jeremiah and yourself. It's a pretty good class.
Unbelievable
the class of
to be
2024.
associated with two people like that. I mean, what an honor, what a thrill.
It is a distinguished class. When you think about success, you know, it's something that you've enjoyed on the field, off the field. What is it? You're talking to young men, especially these days, when you talk to them about success. How do you define it and how do you instruct them on that?
I go back to two things, and I got them from my mother, really. There's success and significance. You can be successful. You can make money. You can climb the corporate ladder. You can be looked at as a person who people want to emulate. But is that really significant? And significance is what you're going to do for the Lord, what's going to last. I'll never forget, I was playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1978. We're getting ready for Super Bowl 13. We're going to play the Dallas Cowboys. And the chapel speaker that morning talked about what is going to be significant about this game. Whoever wins, yes, you're going to get glory for the moment. People are going to say you're great. You're going to get a big paycheck. You're going to get a nice ring. But 10 years from now, is that going to matter? Who you are as a person and what's your relationship with the Lord, that's what's significant. And that's what you better figure out on this field, not whether you win or lose. And that hit me very hard that day. And I can honestly tell you, as I look back, that was such good advice, because there's going to be a new champion every year. There's a new team, and everybody's going to bask in that glory for a couple of days. And then they're going to move on. But what's really significant? Have you made your community a better place to live? Have you helped someone? Have you reached out and done things that are really going to be long lasting? And that's what I tend to think about.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, Tony, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Well, this is great. It's great to be here. Been to the Museum of the Bible a couple of times. It's just always just so inspiring to come here and know that this is God's word that we're talking about, and this is what God has to say to us, and that's what we really need to be listening to.
For sure.
Yeah, we talk a lot here. It's our mission statement about the transformative power of the Bible, and I think that's a thread in our conversation, both with you, how you're a transformer, right, of your own life and of the life of other people, and I think that's really inspiring. So
Yes, thank you.
yeah.
Blessing to get to meet you and get to know
Thank
you.
you. No, it's been great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening or watching to another episode of Unscrolled. If you like us, give us a thumbs up on or even share what you heard here, the conversation. I think there's a lot of people who need to hear this about the transformative, about the Bible. That is so much more than a book.